gentille alouette, alouette, je te crierai. Dormez-vous, dormez-vous, sonnez les matines, ding dong.
El nombre de Ian Watson representa uno de los grandes iconos de la ciencia ficción actual. Y el hecho de que a él le gustara lo que escribía y que incluso un día pudiéramos entrevistarnos y pudiéramos comunicarnos impresiones juntos, pensábamos hacerlo en una hispacón. Al final yo no pude ir por un problema de salud, no pude encontrarme con él, pero después nos encontramos y al final aquí en la Semana Negra compartimos experiencias, impresiones, y cuando me dijo de presentar su última novela me pareció que quedé encantado y para mí no fue una obligación, sino que fue un placer. Cuando me enteré que la novela se titulaba Putas de Babilonia, pues mejor todavía incluso, o sea, fenomenal, adelante con todo. Así que estoy aquí presentándoles a ustedes una novela enormemente curiosa, en la que van a encontrar sobre todo libertad creativa. Hablaba hoy precisamente con unos amigos, en la Semana Negra cambiamos muchas impresiones acerca de las novelas, como ustedes se podrán imaginar, y acerca de la forma de hacer novelas. Y hablaba de que la ciencia ficción y la fantasía, como géneros, sobre todo te dan libertad para crear. Y me atrevería a decir que incluso libertad para leer. Cuando uno lee una novela como Putas de Babilonia, se encuentra con que el autor quiere representar la Babilonia histórica, la Babilonia que todos de alguna manera llevamos dentro, la Babilonia arquetípica, y sin embargo al mismo tiempo no quiere perder de vista la tecnología actual, no quiere perder de vista la sociedad actual con nuestros problemas, nuestras luchas, nuestros debates, y nuestro conocimiento, si es que alguno hemos adquirido, más allá del pueblo babilonio, pero no le gustaba jugar con el tiempo. Es decir, no quería crear la novela típica de voy a retroceder en el tiempo, voy a ir a la Babilonia antigua, voy a conocer la sociedad, la cultura babilónica, teniendo yo unos conocimientos, una tecnología de una época actual. Al autor no le gustaba eso y yo le comprendo perfectamente. No solamente porque se trata de un cliché ya muy conocido, pueden hacerse muchas cosas con los clichés muy conocidos. No ya solamente por eso, sino porque me pareció un extraordinario ejercicio de libertad creativa el mundo que imagina Watson en esta novela y que realmente les invito a que conozcan. Es algo prácticamente increíble. Es una Babilonia construida en medio del desierto en Estados Unidos, es la Babilonia de Arizona, pero con todas las características de la Babilonia antigua, y es una forma de huida de la civilización moderna hacia un mundo antiguo, un mundo que de alguna manera apetece más vivir, apetece más la experiencia de ese mundo que el continuar viviendo en el mundo que pinta Watson, en el mundo moderno, que es un mundo decadente, un mundo al que le quedan muy pocas horas de vida. Qué mejor que huir al comienzo de la civilización, qué mejor que huir a ese reino, a ese mundo que construye con tecnología moderna, pero para dotarlo de todas las características antiguas, y qué mejor que entregarse a ese juego.
To be introduced by Jose Carlos, because Clara y la Penumbra is much better than anything I ever wrote in my life. And the reason why I learned Spanish is to read it in the original, although the English translation is extremely beautiful. And Big Hag is also very, very good as well, and I'm filled with jealousy. Why do we have 7 days in the week? Because of the Babylonians. Why do we have 60 minutes in the hour? Which is very irrational. Because of the Babylonians. Babylon is the cradle of civilization. And what interested me about Babylon, well, first of all, it was very sexy. Because when I was young, there was an encyclopedia in my house. In those innocent days in the 1950s, with pictures of women not wearing many clothes, and in Babylon. The city of Babylon rose and fell several times. So, to study Babylon is perhaps to understand the reason why civilizations rise and fall, rise and fall. This is, in my book, why the Americans are rebuilding the city of Babylon and programming the inhabitants to, first of all, speak ancient Greek and think like Greeks, and then to, after a month's test, to learn ancient Babylonian and become the inhabitants of this kind of epistemological brothel. I'm very interested to hear what the translation of epistemological brothel will. Well, it's actually easy. Bordello, epistemologico. My novel was read, first of all, by the CIA, and then secondly by Saddam Hussein. This is because 6 years after my novel was published, Saddam Hussein began to rebuild the city of Babylon on the original site, half size, and also computer specialists began to program in computer simulations the rise and fall of various ancient civilizations. The Assyrian, the Anasazi in the west of America. So my book was very influential. And one of the secret reasons for the Iraq War, which most people do not know, was for the Americans to destroy Saddam's attempt to rebuild Babylon. Here is a picture of Babylon where the Americans have parked their tanks in order to destroy this attempt to rebuild Babylon, because only the computer simulations of America to determine whether the civilization of America will continue or whether there is an inevitable cause for collapse. I forgot the beginning of the sentence. However, another important factor, if you look at the cover of Voices of Babylon, you will notice a woman who looks a little bit like a Playboy centerfold. Now, this is not my total vision of big women in the book, but when the Americans got in to the secret basement of Saddam Hussein in his palace, they found that he collected the works of erotic fantasy artists from America, such as Rowena Morel, who produced images which is very similar to that. Consequently, Saddam Hussein obviously would have loved the cover of the Spanish edition. I had many challenges when I wrote the book. For instance, one of my characters goes to the Greek theatre in Babylon in order to see a play by Euripides. Unfortunately, this play has been lost completely, so I had to invent completely a soliloquy by Euripides, which I wrote in a 19th century translation into English, because I could not write it in ancient Greek. There's a bit of psychology in the book as well, and this is where I really am interested in hearing what Jose Carlos says, because he originally trained in this field. I only invent it in a fantastic way.
Bueno, ya que Ian ha desvelado uno de los secretos mejor guardados de la novela, debo decirles que la escena de la recreación de la Andrómeda de Eurípides es asombrosa, realmente extraordinaria. Uno siente que está en un teatro griego, uno siente que está allí y de alguna manera participa del lenguaje que Watson de alguna manera inventa, pero que suena de alguna forma como un lenguaje que ya hemos leído, un lenguaje que ya conocemos, y sin embargo es un momento verdaderamente inolvidable de la novela, así que no tengo nada más que celebrarlo. Lo quería dejar como sorpresa, pero Ian nos está desvelando, así que no.
I was very lucky with this passage from Euripides, because a few years later I was invited to a science fiction convention in Israel, and the first night would happen at Jaffa, the ancient port, where possibly Andromeda was chained to a rock so that she could be ravished or rescued by a sea monster. And consequently, the organizers of the convention decided we would begin with me reciting, well, not reciting, but reading out in English my reconstruction of Euripides, and an Israeli actress reading out the same thing in Hebrew translation to the darkness of the night, with only little rocks in the distance where possibly the sea monster might be returning. Now, amusingly, I originally started the book by a short story called We Remember Babylon, 10 pages. And I sent it to an anthology, and it was selected by Don Walheim of Door Books as one of the best science fiction stories of the year. So when I encouraged, I decided that I would expand this idea into a novel. And therefore, when I finished the novel, I sent it to Don Walheim at Door Books, and he sent a short message saying, I do not understand why anyone would want to reconstruct Babylon with its disgusting dirt and obscenities. And obviously I made a little mistake. So somebody else published the book, and for the first time ever, the only time ever in my life, it was shortlisted for the Arthur C. Clarke Award. 10 years later, a small press in England offered to reprint it, and I reread it. And my God, it really needed to be revised. And there were a lot of faults of language and so forth. God knows how it ever was put on the shortlist of an important award. But the point of this is that the Spanish translation is from the revised, improved, perfect text.
Lean Putas de Babilonia, me lo agradecerán. Muchas gracias.
El autor está firmando en la mesa de atrás, ahora mismo.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.